Hi, welcome back to Piano Lessons with Pizzazz. I'm your hostess, Heidi Goldman. Today is lesson 2. So if you missed the first lesson, I would suggest going back. That one describes how you can learn all of your piano keys. That's a really important one to know, so be sure and check that one out. Today's lesson, we are going to talk about half steps and whole steps and scales and chords. If any of these terms are unfamiliar, don't worry about it. I will be using them all the time and reviewing with you. And if you've already heard them before, this may be a very nice review for you. So I'm going to call attention to my keyboard and switch over. As you can see, the keyboard is made up of 2s and 3s, 2s and 3s. In order to learn half step and whole steps, it's really easy to do it on the piano because the piano is so visual. And so let's go ahead and take a look at our 2 black keys. So a whole step is when you have one key next to another key. So from C to D is considered a whole step because there's a key in between, a black key, although it doesn't have to be a black key. From D to E is also a whole step because there's a key in between. But look what happens from E to F. There isn't a key in between, so this is a half step. Let's continue though with more whole step examples. So from F to G is a whole step, and G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, and now we have another exception. 2 white keys next to each other, but there isn't a key in between, so this is a half step. These are just 2 odd examples of half steps with 2 white keys next to each other, no key in between. Okay, some other forms of whole steps would be these 2 black keys next to each other because there's a key in between. These 2 black keys are whole steps. From here to here, whole step. There's a key in between. From here to here, whole step, because that's in between. And then a couple of odd examples of whole steps. So if we look at E, a whole step can't be this one because there isn't a key in between. So from E to this black key called F sharp or G flat, which we'll get to. So this is also a whole step. Or from here to here is a whole step because there's one key in between. Next, we have half steps. Other than these 2 examples of 2 white keys next to each other as half steps, the rest will be a white key and a black key. So from here to here is a half step, or from the black key to the white key is a half step, from the white key to the black key is a half step, black key to the white key is a half step. Of course, as you may remember, that's a half step. We also have some interesting ways of playing scales, and maybe that term is unfamiliar to you. So I'm kind of going to jump ahead just because I think these are cool. If you play all half steps, that's called a chromatic scale. Do you need to remember this today? Probably not, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Now, when we talked about whole tones or whole steps, I love the whole tone scale. So that means I'm only playing whole steps and I'm going to use my pedal. So one of the reasons why I like this so much is because you hear it in music. You hear it in music all the time, especially when you're watching a movie or a sitcom or some show on TV. So think about an older person talking, let's say, to a child, maybe a grandchild, and they say, you know, when I was your age, and then suddenly the screen gets kind of cloudy, and then you hear flashback music. And that was just all whole tones, and I use the pedal. We'll get into learning the pedal a little bit later on, but first I just want to give you some of the basics. So half step, 2 keys next to each other with no key in between. Whole step, 2 keys next to each other with 1 key in between. The 2 examples of half steps are 2 white keys, these examples, E to F and B to C, or backwards, C to B, F to E. These are half steps because there isn't a key in between. Otherwise, your half steps will be a white and a black, or a black and a white. Well, what about from here to here? No, because that's too far away. You have all of these keys in between, so no. Okay, so that's your quick little lesson today on half steps and whole steps. I taught you a little bit advanced stuff about the chromatic scale, which is all half steps. Or the really cool one, all whole steps. We call that a whole tone scale. So to me, this is like a flashback of some sort. So thank you for joining me at Piano Lessons with Pizzazz, and I can't wait to see you again for our next lesson.